now. Let's return to the situation in the Channel. In the last 24 hours, 550 migrants have arrived in the UK via small boats. Our Home and Security editor, Mark White, was in Dover yesterday and is with us in the studio now. Mark, big numbers coming across.
Yes, and the authorities have been braced for the fact that because we're entering a bit of a calm period, I say that, I think there's going to be thunderstorms yesterday and it's quite blowy in the Channel today. Gives you the unpredictable nature of everything and how you try to plan for it. But they did believe that over the coming days there's going to be windows in the weather where the migrants can come across the Channel, and of course they always do. So yesterday we had, from very early in the morning, 8 small boats in that morning surge. Then late at night, another 2 small boats that travelled effectively overnight. They've just arrived in very early this morning. So that takes the total in the past 24 hours to 550. And of course, we reported yesterday that the figures have now topped 17,000 for the year so far.
That's so interesting that they are coming very early morning and late at night. Is that because there are more patrols in the daytime? Is that because it's a busier shipping lane in the daytime?
I think some of it is to do with the tidal conditions. In the morning they get the morning tide, and then, you know, conditions can be favourable in the evening as well. They're looking always, very sophisticated now, these criminal gangs, watching weather and tide conditions to get the optimum moment to push off. And yes, some of it is also down to the activity of the French. They come in for a lot of criticism, but they have stepped up patrols. They do intercept some of the boats before they get into the water and puncture them. But a lot of boats do get into the water. What we don't always see is they don't get to this 12-mile mark, which is the halfway mark across the Channel, where they're then picked up, controversially, by Border Force or a lifeboat. You know, many of them actually, just because they've got very small outboard motors, there are fast-running tides in the Channel, it can be pretty choppy out there, so they end up turning back. And we know that there were quite a few turnbacks yesterday that just didn't make it, not because the French turned them back, they don't do that, but they just couldn't make it to the...
Sorry to be facetious, does that mean there's something in the Home Office's purported scheme to put a wave machine in the Channel? This, of course, appeared in some of the papers, it's popped up again and again. Is this the thinking behind that?
Yeah, it is quite ludicrous. I mean, they don't need to do that because actually the Channel can be pretty treacherous. Even when they say it's flat calm, it's never really flat calm. You'll always get some wave activity. They get wakes as well from all of these passing shipping, the big cargo vessels and oil tankers and other shipping that plough up and down the Channel that create these huge wakes that can very quickly inundate one of these small boats, especially when now we've seen this trend of up to 65 people being crammed onto the boats. And we're told from the criminal gangs that the boats are a bit more sturdy now in response to tragedies that we saw over the last couple of years. However, we had a tragedy again at the weekend because you can make the boat that little bit more sturdy, but when you then pack it out with 65 people, it doesn't take much to inundate it and overturn it.
And that's the fear, isn't it? Because historically it has been July and August when we've seen these high numbers of people crossing the Channel, and you talk about that weather window. Next week looks like it's set to be very, very good weather. Do you think we will see that high-risk strategy of these criminal gangs of packing people into these dinghies to get as many across as they can in that short space of time? Yeah,
there's no doubt that the sort of business model for the criminal gangs is to, you know, put as many people on board as possible. Obviously, they don't want everybody to drown because it's bad for their business, to put it bluntly. But they want to make the maximum profit, so they'll push it right to the end. And they're constantly, you know, trying to see just how much these boats will take in terms of extra people on board. And, you know, from starting out 4 or 5 years ago, this particular crisis, when it first manifested, we had half a dozen, 12 or so on the boats. Then it went up to 20 or 30. And then in the last year or so, it was 40, a maximum of 50. And now, as I say, it's 65. And that's leading to tragedies. And we see that replicated, of course, elsewhere in the world with regular tragedies in the Mediterranean and reports today of another tragedy off the coast of Africa where a migrant boat that was heading to Spain with 100 people on board capsized weeks ago, apparently. They're only just finding out about this now, but 60 people missing, presumed dead.
Tragic. Mark White, thank you so much for bringing us the very latest there, fresh from Dover. It's just astonishing the more and more that we hear about it.
Yeah, it really is.